Hi, I am Fox. How are you today? Okay, this is a movie called Old Henry, released in 2021. This synopsis tells the story of a poor old farmer with a mysterious past, but because of circumstances he has to face crazy people again, which makes him have to reveal his true identity again to become a cruel and brutal figure. The film scene is set in the cowboy era of the 1800s in America. Yes, I know you must not have been born yet, including me. It shows three cowboys wearing sheriff's badges chasing a man who is running scared, where one of the three men starts aiming like a sniper and shoots right at the fugitive's leg until he falls down. Bullseye. And without reducing respect to President Donald Trump, I will introduce these three men. The man wearing a white coat named Stillwell from Mexico, with expertise as a tracker who has repented as a drug dealer. Duggan is arrogant and likes to eat sunflower seeds. Lastly, there is Keth, the sadistic sniper who is cruel among the others. This is proven when he trampled on the man and even dragged him using a rope tied to his neck. In this interrogation, the three of them turned out to be hunting for something that had been taken by the man's colleague. After getting the expected information, Keth approached very casually and coldly, even though this man begged for forgiveness in front of them, but Keth, the man who collected Barbie dolls, still killed him by strangling his neck until his lungs shrank. Moving to another place, and this is Old Man Henry, an old farmer with a half-fallen beard. After the death of his wife, who died 10 years ago due to tuberculosis, he had to become both a father and a mother to his son named Wyatt. The grave of his late wife is seen to be very well maintained, showing that Henry is a good man, respecting and loving his wife with all his heart. That day Henry was working on something. He asked for help from his brother-in-law named Mal, or his uncle Wyatt, whose house and farm were not far from the place where he lived alone. I also don't know why Alt lives alone, and it's impossible to ask the film director about this.
Much as I'd like a sticker.
After the mall went home, Henry and Wyatt saw a horse walking alone without a rider. Then they both approached to check it, but they found something surprising, because there were blood stains on the horse's saddle, which seemed like the owner of this horse had been injured and might have fallen somewhere. Realizing that something was wrong, Henry immediately told Wyatt to go back home, even though Wyatt actually insisted on joining the search. Immediately Henry went following the horse's tracks to make sure whether the owner was still alive or dead. After searching far enough, Henry finally found someone slumped motionless who seemed to be the owner of the horse that was walking alone earlier. After being examined, the man was still alive even though he had a fairly severe gunshot wound. But what was more surprising was that Henry found a gun and a bag containing a large amount of money that could be used to buy tickets for Diddy's party.
Nope.
Because he didn't want to get involved in any further trouble, Henry tried to leave the man. But because there was still a sense of humanity in his heart, Henry returned to take the man and cover his tracks as best he could so that no one could track him. When he arrived home, Henry immediately told Wyatt to treat the injured man. Meanwhile, Henry was aware of the consequences of helping a man who was in trouble and being hunted by someone more evil. Henry's guess was not wrong, because this man was indeed being hunted by three men like the sheriff. The next morning, because the man whose problem was unclear, Henry tied his hands to the bed, worried that when he woke up it could endanger his son, because Henry planned to return to the place where this man was found, and Wyatt was asked to stay home to guard him. Here it seems that all this time Wyatt was forbidden to use a firearm by his father, so that when Henry had left he turned out to know where Henry hid his gun and used it to practice shooting the stolen whiskey bottle at P. Diddy's party. Back to the injured man named Curry having a nightmare showing a chaotic past. When he was little he saw a criminal shot dead, and he still remembered the words of the criminal saying to keep your head up and you'll be fine. Back to Henry, who had arrived at the location. He saw three men who were hunting Curry, and the tracker Stillwell managed to track the direction where Henry took Curry to escape. Henry approached among the weeds to hear their conversation. Here it was shown how well trained and dangerous Henry was, who was just an ordinary farmer who could quietly crawl among the weeds. As a reliable tracker, Stillwell certainly knew that this place had been passed, so that he was impressed with what had been done by someone who covered this trail, According to him, this person was not just anyone because from his methods and thoroughness it was clear that ordinary people would not have thought this far to remove their tracks. Suddenly they began to realize there was something behind the weeds. Slowly they approached the location, which when they arrived there was no one there except a crawling trail, which must have been someone who had been watching the three of them from that location. At home, Wyatt was confused when Curry woke up in a strange house, of course making him alert, trying to untie the ties on his hands. Curry quickly took a knife on the table and threatened Wyatt to stop moving, while asking where the bag containing the money was, but suddenly, after that, Curry realized he was tied to a chair and saw Henry burning the tip of a knife to stab him into the gunshot wound in order to remove the bullet lodged in his shoulder. While being interrogated, Curry claimed to be a sheriff. He said that he was being chased by three robbers disguised as sheriffs, and we know that they are the Keth gang. Somehow a law officer was hunted by bandits, but Curry warned Henry to leave the house immediately, because if the three bandits found out about his whereabouts they would definitely be killed. The warning seemed too late because the bandits had arrived there. Henry, who was aware of the danger, took the gun and told Wyatt to stay away from the window and not do anything stupid. For the first time this trio of bandits finally could face a thin old farmer who lacked nutrition and a half-fallen beard with one eye barely open. They assumed this person was too weak to need a fight, so Keth invited the old farmer to talk, first politely asking if he knew someone with characteristics like Curry, because Curry was a dangerous criminal who had robbed a bank of money and the three of them were law enforcers who were on duty to catch the fugitive.
He's dangerous.
Henry casually replied that he did not see the fugitive because he claimed to be just an ordinary farmer who did not want to get involved in any trouble. Because there was nothing to debate further, the bandits just left without the slightest commotion. After moving away from Henry's house, the bandits rested while discussing the old farmer. According to Keth, the farmer was not an ordinary person because from the way he held the gun it looked unusual and not the same as a farmer in general, which in essence they realized that Henry had lied because Henry had actually hidden Curry in the house. Then Keth assigned Duggan to scout Henry's house and warned him not to act rashly because he was currently waiting for his troops who were on their way as assistants to help them find Curry. Back to Henry, who was interrogating Curry to find out about his origins and make sure whether he was an officer or not, and from the story he told it was true that Curry was a law enforcer, but what was more surprising was when he found out that Curry was born in New Mexico, more precisely in a village called Fort Summer because it was a location that witnessed the death of the famous killer named Billy the Kid. This story is not just a fairy tale, because the story of Billy the Kid actually exists in the real world. It is recorded that he has killed more than 25 people for no apparent reason, and the murders have been carried out since Billy was young. The interesting thing is that Curry became a living witness to the death of Billy the Kid. Because the nightmare we saw earlier was a flashback from his past when he saw with his own eyes that Billy the Kids were shot in the chest. That was the end of the story of Billy the Kid, the most famous cowboy bandit in America. Henry immediately untied after what was said was true, and suddenly, several shots were fired from the outside which turned out to come from Duggan because he couldn't wait to catch Curry. Henry, who felt in danger, was forced to take a shotgun to fight back to protect his son and his home. Here it is seen that even though an ordinary old farmer seems very calm in facing this threat as if he was used to being in dangerous conditions, Henry quietly went out shooting towards the underside of the house where Duggan was crawling in there. When he was shot, Duggan tried to escape because he was scared Duggan finally came out. So Henry added a bonus shot in the back which made him fall down. We see this old man starting to look cruel by killing Duggan by drowning his head in a mud puddle, then throwing his body into his pig pen for dinner without soy sauce and salt. The next morning they both went to the mall at his house and farm. They went there with the aim of finding out who Henry really was. Because the mall could not be asked to cooperate, they both beat him up until he passed out.
Well, I think it's time you left.
Elsewhere, Curry realized that the bandits would not stop until they were caught. Especially if they knew that Duggan had been sent to hell through a pig's stomach. Curry told Henry and Wyatt not to interfere in his affairs because they would definitely be killed by them all, so Curry asked the old man and his son to leave as soon as possible. Unfortunately, when he was about to leave, Henry was immediately surprised by the appearance of Keth, who turned out not to be alone but brought a cowboy troop who was ready to destroy his residence. Not only that, the appearance of Stillwell brought Mal, whose face was already battered as if he had just participated in a slap contest, making Henry so angry and had to fight this bandit, so that Wyatt was given a gun as a precaution while Henry went out to make a deal with the bandits. Here Henry's mental calm is seen when he was asked by the bandits to leave immediately, but seeing Mal's battered face, of course Henry would not just leave and instead firmly told them to let go of Mal and immediately piss off.
Ride your asses off my property.
Keth, who felt offended, immediately shot Mal's head, which spontaneously made Wyatt suddenly come out, and there was a shootout between them. Henry quickly went into the house saying something to his son to keep your head up and you'll be fine.
You still with us?
Keep your damn head down. You'll be all right.
Hearing these words, Curry immediately remembered his childhood where the murder took place, and he finally realized that the old farmer who had helped him was the legendary cowboy killer, Billy the Kid's. Henry will also take action where he uses the best weapon he has kept all this time, then comes out casually while raising both his hands up. And suddenly, Henry finally proves who he really is, where Henry can shoot a gun in a split second, tearing apart the ranks of bandit troops, killing them, and only a few of them are still surviving. Not only is he skilled with guns, tactical weapons such as knives and axes also dance easily in his hands, slaughtering them all with a clever strategy of killing the remaining troops one by one. In another corner, Stillwell is still wandering around looking scared after seeing all his friends sent to hell, so he tries to escape immediately, but Henry is already aiming ready to release hot lead. Having no other choice, Stillwell pretends to surrender, releasing his weapon except for a knife ready to be thrown. But Henry, with super fast reflexes, immediately gives Stillwell a hold. Henry feels relieved for a moment until suddenly a shot is heard coming from Keth, who turns out to be still alive. The chase scene is unavoidable until Henry has to be shot in the shoulder, but Henry does not give up by running into the forest. Here it is clear that Keth is not comparable to Henry, the Billy the Kid, where his shooting technique and accuracy are still far below Henry, who is used to killing people, so when Keth runs out of bullets he chooses to surrender and be killed by this cowboy legend. After all were slaughtered, Henry returned home and was relieved to see Wyatt still okay and Curry, who was also able to survive even though his leg was shot. Henry, who was injured, still cared to treat Curry by telling Wyatt to get water, and when this old man tore his sleeve, Henry was surprised to see a mark that was the same as the bandits, and suddenly finally revealed an interesting fact that Curry was one of the gang with the bandits earlier. Because the scar on his arm was a promise of an agreement between him and the bandit group, where Curry was indeed a sheriff who worked with the bandits to help rob the money. Because Curry was too greedy to have the money from the robbery alone. That's selfish. Don't imitate it, bro. And the reason why he had to kill Henry, who had been good at helping him, was that since childhood Curry had continued to have nightmares by the shadow of Billy the Kid because he had killed his employer where he worked. Also, as a law enforcer who was willing to do anything, Curry deliberately killed Henry because it was an honor for him to be able to kill a legend, Billy the Kid's. Unfortunately, the nonsense lecture had to stop when Wyatt appeared and immediately sent Curry to hell to join the bandits. The last moment with 5% of his life left, Henry told his son to take good care of himself. And if one day you hear about bad things about Henry's past life, some of it is true but many are also wrong, therefore do not believe the bad gossip that has spread, because Henry who is now is very different from Henry who used to be.
Place I don't belong in no more.
Wyatt buried his father's body right next to his mother's grave, and he also had no reason to stay here, so he chose to go on a long journey to find his true identity. The film is over. The message of this film is never to judge someone from the outside. Because clearly, the expression "don't judge by cover" is not nonsense. What looks bad to us is not necessarily bad according to others, and vice versa. We must be aware of ourselves before judging, because judging someone only from their appearance, you will lose the opportunity to meet great people and of course just wait for destruction. I am Fox, and thanks for watching.